Namaste. Welcome to our 69th talk on the Bhagavad Gita. We're here now, ready for the 6th verse of the 15th chapter. In the previous verse, it says, the undeluded reach the eternal goal. In other words, when all the fog and the illusions are gone, and we're able to truly see, of course, with the eye of the consciousness, not these perishable eyes, then we are therefore qualified to reach that goal, and we do. More to it than that, but there the sun, moon, or fire illuminate not. Well, hopefully not, because the sun, the moon, and the fire, they're down in this material world. But what they really is getting to is that we become swayamprakash, self-illumined and self-illumining. That by our sadhana, we have become ourselves the prakasha, the light, the jyoti, atma jyoti. Just as our ashram is called Atma Jyoti Ashram. The Atma Jyoti is the goal. And there, in that Atma Jyoti, there is no need for any secondary illuminator. Going whither they return not. Until then, it's bouncing back and bouncing back and bouncing back. As Anandamayi Ma would say, you have to choose return trip ticket or one-way ticket. The sadhaka, the real yogi, the one who applies, is the one who is not just chosen the one-way ticket, is also creating it by becoming it. That is the transformation of his consciousness, which is his essential being. Going whither they return not, for that is my supreme abode, and that is also our abode, because we're a part of this great being. Therefore, his home base is our home base. The place where he is absolutely himself or itself is the only place where we then are, in the sense of experiencing ourselves. When the Lord takes on a body, now, it's not talking about an avatar in this case. It means when the Lord, in the form of our own individual Atma, when we're all part of the Paramatma. And so, in a sense, the Atma is also the Lord. It does have great control, our pure self. So, when the Lord takes on a body and when he leaves it, he takes the senses and the mind. Because, see, they don't die. That's an important thing to know. Therefore, watch your mind and be careful of your mind and cultivate your mind, because you're going to be taking it with you every time you leave the world, which means you're never going to be absent from it and away from it. So that's what you really pay attention to. We pay attention to things such as our clothing, but we pay most attention to these kind of things because you lose one of these, it's gone. Well, this too is just a finger, just an appendage of us. And the real thing is, again, it's a self. And we depart from all this, however attached we are to it and however much we value it. When he leaves it, he takes the senses and the mind and goes. Like the wind takes the scents from their seats, their origins, the flowers and herbs, just as we cannot see the fragrance of a flower or of various aromatic herbs. And the scent and the wind carries them. And we enter a room and we say, "Oh, what is that?" And it was told, "Well, so and so." Well, the air itself carried it to us. So then, God, as the wind takes this very subtle thing, the smell, and goes, so the Atman and Paramatman go together from the body. And in case we wonder, well, is it just figuratively speaking about being the Lord? Now the 9th verse says, presiding over hearing, sight, touch, taste, and smell, as well as the mind, because we observe the mind and which is itself an indriya, an organ of perception, and yet an object of perception, because that's its subtlety. So, back to the beginning, presiding over hearing, sight, touch, taste, and smell, as well as the mind, this Ishwara. Now, Ishwara is the personal God, Saguna Brahman, the source of the whole cosmos, the beginning and the end of it. So, we are in our body, we are Ishwara in our little universe, because we even mirror the universe in our makeup as the great primal or original Ishwara, then is embodied in this world and experiences this whole world and puts it forth from himself and takes it back into himself. So we too are like that. And we pack up our suitcase and we go. Whether departing, remaining, or enjoying, accompanied by the gunas, because you can't get away from them, because everything we experience is energy, and all these energies have one of the three qualities or gunas. The deluded do not see him. In other words, even at death, they don't see God. They don't find God. Many of them just go to sleep. Then the next thing you know, somebody slaps them on the rear and they squall, they bawl because they've just been born. So, no matter what the process is, they do not see him. They say, I only believe in what I can see. Well, that's really stupid because they believe in anger and you can't see anger. Nobody is such an idiot. Uh, Basically, only the lowest animals only believe what they can see. But this is the way it works with people. And if they're not careful, they get what they want. You can go into animal forms. It isn't very common, but it can happen. Whether departing, remaining, or enjoying, accompanied by the gunas, the deluded do not see him. Those with the eye of knowledge see him. So that's the eye we have to get, or the eye we have to open, whichever way you want to say it. So you see, it is experiencing, it is seeing, but a seeing which is also knowledge. The moment you see it, you know what you're seeing. You don't have to have anyone tell you. You can say, "Oh, what is that plant over there?" Someone says, "Well, it's a so and so." From then on, you know it. So your illumined mind, your illumined self, lets you know whatever it is that you see, but most of all, then you see the source of it. And that's it. As Sivananda wrote in his poem, Only God I Saw. He writes all the things that he looked and saw, but he said, I saw it was only God. This was, of course, he was in a state of perfect liberation and self realization. But he wrote it not to say, oh, look at me, what a good boy am I, like little Jack Horner with a plum on his thumb. No, he meant, even now that which you see is also God, but you don't realize it. But you can know it and you can experience it just as I did, you see. The real masters, they never pretend they're special. They never pretend they're unique. And they never say to the disciple, well, I have an ability and you don't. I have a level you don't. No. Everything the greatest master that ever lived had, you and I have right now, but we haven't, in a sense, occupied the territory. And we haven't started living in it and employing it, using it, whichever word, and experiencing it. So, and you and I will never be any different from what we are now as far as our being and all the levels of our being is just in the perception. So you see, consciousness is everything. Just like, oh, I saw Krishna last night and tears flowed from my eyes. Well, I sympathize with you. May God help you to get beyond emotion and objectivity. That's the truth. This is why it was interesting. You see, Sri Ramakrishna, of course, was devoted to the goddess Kali, rightly so. But he was only devoted to the goddess Kali, and he did not know and did not follow the path of real jnana. Well, when he began following it and began meditating it, Kali would appear before him. Well, if the deity appears, well, you bow, you maybe say words of praise, and you feel love for them. And that's right at a certain point. But he had come to a certain point where he needed to move on further. And so he said, with the sword of discrimination, I cut her in half, and she disappeared. Now, hateful people who don't like Dharma, they love to quote because they really resent Buddha for coming in the world and giving the path of enlightenment. And so they love to say, well, as they say in Zen, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Now, who would kill Buddha? What, of course, the Zen masters are meaning that the only real Buddha is the inside Buddha, is the you Buddha. So if you have an objective experience, then it isn't really the Buddha, therefore kill it. That's what they mean. And that is seen, that Buddha is seen by, excuse me, those that have that eye. Because jnana is itself the process of knowing. It's not just the ability to know, it is knowing. And in the state of unity, you know what is known, which means you realize your identity with the absolute being. The yogis striving They work at it. They do tapasya. They engage in many things, even a study of sacred books like this, to keep elevating and purifying their minds. Sadhana is the highest thing, without which all the rest is worthless. But they support that sadhana with all of these things, which include virtuous action, and they really work at it. Let's look at this word, striving, because we tend to be lazy. We don't like to strive much. The word used is yatantas, Sanskrit, of course, which means striving, exerting yourself, really working at it, making an endeavor, and it has a side meaning of stretching, which means you stretch, you expand your consciousness. And part of that is you've got to stretch and expand your own understanding, your own knowledge. And that's why books like the Gita are necessary. And spiritual reading, there is such a thing, although I've known fake yoga cults that try to get their followers to read nothing but their own books because they didn't want them to learn the truth. But you should be learning, you should be reading. The scriptures of Sanatana Dharma are many and vast. They're not all of the same quality, and certain things that are included, maybe on a list, may not be of any great worth. Certain things are called scriptures in Bharat that are really rather foolish, or rather worthless. But that's because there you're free to say whatever you think and what you believe, and you're free to write a book. And you write a book, and sometimes you claim some great sage wrote it, but really you wrote it. And it's garbage, and it ought to be thrown into the garbage. But there's a lot to learn and a lot to know. And you should be continually, there should not be a day that you don't read some sacred text, especially the Gita. It's good to read a chapter a day, especially the translation of Swami Prabhupada, because it's so easy and so beautiful to read. Because Christopher Isherwood, a very great writer, worked with him on the translation. And it's very good. It's an interpretive translation, it's not literal. But you do need to read ordinary, literal, scholarly translations too. But for the daily reading, to keep reminding you, Prabhupada's The Song of God is a marvel. I mean that truly a marvel. Even here, we read a chapter, in our sort of reading satsang, and we'll read it. And usually it's from Prabhupada. All right. The yogi, well, I'm coming up to the 20-minute limit, which is supposed to be. And so I think I'll just stop there. For once, not go over it. But you see, this is such a wonderful thing to talk about. These concepts are joy-giving when they are freeing. When I finished the Gita, I finished it. I had the habit, because I was a bookworm, of reading when I walked somewhere. I thought, why waste the time? I've been through these neighborhoods. I don't need to look at them. And so, I would just take a book and hold it up and read as I walked along. Usually I held it so, okay, I'd see the sidewalk peripherally, and I know I was on the sidewalk. And so I would read walking along. And the Gita was so amazing. I especially did it with that. And so when I was in the 18th chapter, the final chapter, I was walking along reading, and it was just so awesome. And so I came up to the house and unlocked the door and went and closed the door, and then I sat right down on the floor. I think I took my coat off, but I may not have, because it was fall. And anyway, I did or didn't take my coat off, but I sat right down. I never took my eyes from the page, and I finished it. And when it was finished, I cried, I cried, I cried, and I cried, because I thought, at last I know. The experience I'd had, which led to me reading the Gita, in that I had learned I suddenly knew in a moment and understood what I had actively disbelieved before, that there is reincarnation, there is karma, there is evolution of consciousness, and there are many worlds that we go to as we evolve in consciousness until we get down to the highest and unite with God. After all those years of devoted superstition, I was a Sunday school teacher. I used to preach. Can you imagine? Dispensing this childish goo to people, much of which was utter nonsense and some of it blasphemy. Blasphemy of our own nature as divinity. And some blasphemy is our idea of God as some tyrant with thunderbolts is going to kill us and burn us up in hell forever. That is a very hellish lie. And it was all gone. The darkness was dispelled. I could see my own face. And it was a great relief. A great relief. Therefore, do read these great truths, such as the book we have printed, which I don't guess I have a copy to show you, called Sanatana Dharma, the Eternal Religion. Actually, a textbook written by a committee of teachers from Banaras Hindu University. And I will be showing at our next online satsang, our monthly online satsang, a further book that we printed. That is the Sanatana Dharma book, is sort of the college course. And then this book is the graduate school course. It's the same truths, but with much greater detail and elaboration. And we have to keep reminding ourselves, because in how many lives before do we know these things? So they're not rooted in that deep, deep, deep subconscious mind. So we have to keep cleaning the window pane so that the light comes through fully. Oh, thank you so much. But it's really true.